Hello, everybody. My name is Claude Joisil, and today we're going to be talking about what is new in Angular 10. I heard someone told me that this talk is the last talk of the day and of the week, by the way. I hope that you're going to have enough fun with me, even if that's not really going to be fun, but we'll try our best. Like we said, today we're going to talk about Angular 10, and we're going to try to cover some of the new stuff that was added to Angular 10. Without further ado, we're just going to start. We're starting with what I like to say, what I like to title IRPs. This is things that will not be supported in Angular 10. So we would like to send our thoughts and prayers with the friends and families of Internet Explorer 10, 9, and Internet Explorer Mobile. These are no longer supported by Angular, and I know for some developers that is good news because one thing that most front-end developers have in common is the dealing with the issues with Internet Explorer. I think I'm not the only one who not just once have my application working everywhere else. It's working on Chrome, it's working on Firefox, and suddenly the client comes back to you or QA comes back to you and say it doesn't work. Nothing shows up in Internet Explorer. So now we have something we can tell the client or QA. We just tell them that the framework we're using does not support IE, so goodbye. I think, to me personally, with my experience with IE, that's good news for me because now you don't have to deal with making it work for IE. By the way, I don't know if you guys know, Bootstrap 5 also dropped IE. So, if you upgrade to or once you upgrade to Bootstrap 5 when it's officially out, Bootstrap 5 does not support IE anymore, and I don't think that should be any surprise for anyone because even Microsoft. I was reading in the news, was it last month, that even Microsoft is saying goodbye to IE. So we're not the only one. I think that's good news for everyone. Even if I don't want to offend any IE fan that is in the audience. Next thing we're going to talk about that is that is new, that is changed, that is changing now for Angular 10 is Angular 10 is now using Typescript 3.9 and Typescript 3.9 and so and TSLib 2.0. And the reason why that is a very important fact is that TypeScript, if you TypeScript uses TSLib to provide some helper functions for in compiled TypeScript code. So if you create your own libraries, if you have any libraries in your workspace, you before TypeScript 3.9, TSLib was a period dependency. I don't know if you guys know I know some developers don't take the time to make the difference between all the types of dependencies that exist. So the most used dependencies are dev dependencies and regular dependency, but there are also period dependencies that are mostly used in libraries. Okay, so a dependency, when you add a dependency to your package.json, this is used by this is use in your application, in your front-end application, for to even run the application on production, on QA, whatever, to run the application. If you don't want a dependency to run the application, you just want that dependency for your development environment, for your development process, then you use dev dependencies. But now there is this other type of dependency that is called a peer dependency. A peer dependency is used when you create a library, but you also want whoever or whatever application that's going to use your library, you want that application, the one using your library, to also have that dependency. You see the difference? So if it's a peer dependency, if your library uses a peer dependency, any application that is going to use your library will need that dependency. So why is TSLib why is the move from being a peer dependency to a sample dependency important for TSLib? Is now, if you upgrade your library to Angular 10, for example, you update your library to Angular, any library that you had to Angular 10, then your library now will be using Typescript 3.9. If it uses Typescript 3.9, it will also be using TSLib, because TSLib was upgraded to 2.x to support Typescript 3.9. So if an application was using your library, and that application and TSLib was still a peer dependency, your application, even if you are not ready to upgrade to Angular 10, you are not ready to upgrade to Typescript 3.9, you would have to upgrade your app. You would have to download to get TSLib 2.x in your application. So you imagine if you have a very big application and you're not ready to migrate, how much of a pain it would be if you had to depend on TSLib 2.x. 2.x. So moving TSLib for Angular 10, moving TSLib from being a peer dependency to an actual regular dependency is very important for the community, for the community that's going to be using your library. Okay, I hope that was clear. The third thing we're gonna cover for what is new in Angular 10 is the date range picker. Back before Angular 10, developers relied on me and other developers, and I remember I'm working on that Angular material application where I had to use NGX date range picker material to have a date, because I needed to have a date range in a form I was created. I needed to use an external library for it. But now with Angular 10, you have this, I don't know how this beautifully looking date range picker that Angular Material 10 makes available for you. I think that's awesome. I've used it and it's cool. It looks good and it's very easy to implement. The third thing that we're gonna cover, and that's also a very, very important one. And the reason why me personally, I like that move is even before we had the option to opt in to strict, I used to enforce in TS-length and some of these tools. I used to try to enforce the importance of the type safety in TypeScript and stuff and stuff like that. So with Angular 10, by default, if you create your application, if you say the way we're looking at it here, if when you're creating your application you create it with --strict, it automatically it automatically enable some of the strictness that you would have to turn on by yourself for you. By just by creating your application with this command ng new cool app strict, what you do, you enable strict mode in TypeScript. You activate strict Angular compiler flags. You turn on no any, and more. But we're just going to talk about the three first ones. Let's talk about strict mode in TypeScript. One example of that we can think of right away is strict property initialization. Many languages, for example, C#, if you declare a variable and you'd never assigned it to anything, and at some point in your application you just start using it, you see errors. You see it tells you right away that you're trying to use a variable, a property that you haven't assigned anything to yet. But for TypeScript and languages like that, that is not required. You may, for example, if we're looking at that example here, if strict mode is not enforced, you will be able to, you would not have any error if you have that part of the code. When you see I just have an input title string, just input title string, and then if I use that input in my code, I would not have any issue. But now, if when you created your application, you use strict, it will turn on strict property initialization, which would prevent you from doing something like that. And that's a good thing, because why would you want to use a property in your application when you never at any point assigned it to anything? Maybe you just forgot, you just declared the property, but you didn't really need it in the application, in which case you would just get rid of it, you would just remove it, because that would be extra. Or maybe you intended to assign something to it, but you forgot. So the fact that it's going to let you know that there's an issue, that's a good thing. To fix something like that, even if you would say, okay, I'm just using an input variable, or an input property, an input attribute. In input property, you could say, I'm using an input property. At some point, the parent component will set a value for it. So it will use whatever the value that the parent component will set to it. But like, as you know, if your parent component never set anything to it, then nothing will be set to it. So it's safe for you to have to set a default value, to assign it to something, just in case. Okay, so that's strict property initialization. You have to always initialize. And another point to that, even if that has nothing to do with what's new in Angular 2, in Angular 10, you'll see that in the part that works, that line, input title equals empty string, we don't have to mention the type of it at this. Here, we don't have to mention what is the type, what is the title type. Because since we're assigning it to a string, the type is inferred. And that is one thing that in TSLint, that is something that is encouraged. If we know if the type is going to be inferred, you don't have to specify it. So you would not have to say input title colon string equals empty string, because the type is inferred. Okay. The second thing that ng new app would activate is Angular compiler flags. One thing that I used to say that I like about React, that I wish I had in Angular, was the fact that in React, when you create your component, if, for example, in your HTML part of it, in the markup part, if you have a variable or a variable that was never defined, it will let you know right away that you have an error. You're trying to use something that was never declared or defined. But in Angular, the way if we're looking at this button right here, if strict mode is not enforced, that you would not have any compile error here. it will just let you build your application. It would go all the way to production. And then once your user tries to run the application, they would have an issue because they would have an issue if user was not defined, for example. It would say you're trying to get property is admin from null, or you're trying to get property is admin from undefined. But if you create your application with the strict mode activated, the difference is going to be Angular is going to check, let me see, three things here. It's going to check if, since when you say let to do is declared, right? But to do's, the collection to do's, Angular needs to check now if you do have a to do's collection declared in your component, right? That's the first thing. And if it's not defined, it's going to tell you that you trying to get a collect to do's that is not defined, and that's something you get in compile time. It will not wait for you to publish your application or to run your application to find it. It will get it in compile time. The other thing that it will check is if the object to do has a property called title. That's the second thing. If the property called title does not exist, it will mention that to you too. The third thing is going to try to see if user is admin, user that is admin exists. So not only user checks if user is null or undefined, but check also if is admin is a property of user. That's something you get in compile time now. And that's another thing I really like about that Angular 10 brings to us. Because now you don't have to wait for you don't have to wait to run your application, to start your application, or even to build your application to see these issues. Okay. The second thing that was strict templates. Strict templates is automatically turned on if you use strict in when you create your application. The second thing is strict null checks. Now, if I create an application, the second part we're looking at here, if in my application, this example I'm looking at here, I try to get, I have an article object which has the type article or undefined. Okay. If in my template now I try to access title, I'm gonna have an issue because my article can either be of type article or undefined. So it's like you're trying to get title from an object that could potentially be undefined. So it's gonna tell you that. The way one way to fix that, just to make sure that you have it covered, is to use a question mark after title, after article. This way, if it's null, then it doesn't display anything, and if it does have the attribute, the property, it displays what you want. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to cover is the no any TS length rule. That is one thing I've been turning on even before switching to Angular 10. That's one thing I've been turning on for all my applications. Not letting my application accept types, accept the any type. So I know many developers, the way they do it is when they're creating when they're working on something, if they're not sure about what type the object they're working on needs to be, they just use any. That's very far from being a good practice. I know People argue that you will get to a point where you have to do that. You have to use it. But the um, if I get to a point where I realize I have to use any, I prefer creating my own type and then use that type I create to mimic what this object I'm working on with, um, how it needs to behave. The problem does what the code we're looking at here describes a problem you could have with by using any here. I look here. I declare my client. I declare a client object, a client variable as any, right? And then in my constructor, I assigned it to HTTP, which is of type HTTP. What's going on? Which is of type HTTP client. Okay. So let's say HTTP client. Since HTTP client is a library we get from is a service we get from Angular. At some point, Angular upgrades Angular deprecate one method, right? And the HTTP client, the Angular deprecates one method from HTTP client. Okay, so when I try to get to that deprecated method in this line here, when handle click, I go this, that client, that deprecated method, whatever the deprecated method is. Here on top here, I said client is defined as any. So now Angular updates, whatever, and get rid of deprecated method. One thing when I run ng update, one thing that's gonna happen is Angular will look for the deprecated methods and maybe replace them with whatever the new method I need to use is, or just remove it, or just show me that using that deprecated method that doesn't exist anymore, you need to do something about it. But now when ng update reads my code, they're gonna see I declared the client as any. Since I declared client as any, the ng update will not know if that deprecated method that I'm trying to access here is just one method that client has, the object client has, that had nothing to do with HTTP client, since it's any. But if from the top here I already declared it as HTTP client, then ng update will look everywhere they see that type and then start sending warnings or fix issues for me. So my advice is, of course, whenever you're creating, and that's me. I don't know if that's gonna be true for everyone, but whenever I'm creating a new application with Angular 10, I go strict. And then if I have to make any compromise, I try to do it after I use strict, but I start with strict. This way, I get all the benefits that Angular 10 brings to me. And then one other thing that I didn't mention here in the slides is using Angular 10. Angular 10 reduces considerably the size of your application because it gets rid of some of the stuff that were not being used, and optimize many things for us. So that is it for my talk. Like I said, I chose 30 minutes, and I know why I chose 30 minutes. I knew it was going to be a very short one. And one thing I know is the Angular 10 update or upgrade was in June, I think, June. So since it's been a while since Angular 10 was up, the upgrade came out. I know Angular developers already, most of us already moved to Angular 10, and some of the things that I was gonna cover were already seen by you guys. So I picked some of the most important things, some of the most important parts, and I know that, and I've been working with developers for a very long, and I know some parts we struggle with, some parts that we don't pay too much attention to. That's why I try to cover today. I don't know if there is any question, please ask. I know it's exactly 3 p.m. and that was supposed to be my time. But if you have any question, don't hesitate to post them, and then I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
We have no questions, so I think we're okay.
Ah, okay. All right. If we have no question, then.
Oh, wait. I see one coming in. Sorry. Do you want to read it, because it has a part that it's a little bit technical? It's in the Q&A mode.
Oh, okay. That's a question about compile. Okay. Any advice for this warning? Oh, I haven't seen. I have this question from Razvan. I haven't seen that error. ngtypecheck.ts. No, I haven't seen that. So I don't know. You're gonna have to answer the text. So you get that while you're upgrading, or you said after updating from 9 to 10. I haven't seen that error. But it's a warning. You said it's a warning. But no, I haven't gotten that.
And there's another one in the chat. What is coming for Angular in the future?
What is doing? Okay, what are the major challenges you face doing upgrading to 10, upgrading 10 from your current? Okay, so when I was upgrading, I'll answer that question after. Wasn't it? But when I was upgrading, I guess I got lucky. When I have two applications that use Angular. One, I upgraded from 9 to 10, ng update, and then I had some small warnings, but not stoppers, not big stoppers. That things that took me too much time to figure out. And one other application I just started from scratch with Angular 10, so I didn't have any issue with that. What is the other question?
It's what is coming for Angular in the future?
Oh, for Angular in the future, we are Angular 10. Angular 10 came kind of fast, kind of quick after Angular 9, and I guess that's because the guys, the Google Angular team, I guess that's because they really wanted to get us some that lighter version of Angular, or at least the lighter compiled version. And I'm not sure exactly what's coming next, but I know we are already at Angular 10 point something, 10.1, or I don't remember exactly. But I don't know what's like in the near future what's coming up. But we get to enjoy Angular 10 with all its benefits for now.
Thank you. I think we don't have more questions.
Okay. All right. If there's no other question, guys, thank you for joining. It was a pleasure. I know my talk was the last talk, so you get to enjoy your weekend. It's 3:03. It's still early, but have a good weekend, and it was nice talking to you, even if we didn't have a really actual interaction. But I hope I helped I helped a little bit with the information I gave. And if you're part of the team, then you know my information. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any question or anything related to front-end development for React, Angular, anything like this for that matter. Thank you.